Welcome to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. This is a podcast for faithful women who want healing in their relationships, guidance from God, and internal peace. Each week, you'll hear mental health concepts taught through a spiritual lens from me, a licensed clinical mental health counselor, to help you start thinking in a higher and holier way. Welcome to another Ask a Therapist episode. This month, we're talking about healing past wounds.
All right, so last month we started a new little series that we thought would be super fun with Nikki, where I am going to tell you a fun fact about Nikki's life. Nikki and I have known each other since we were just wee little junior high girls, and I know a lot of crazy stuff about her, and I thought it'd be super fun to share one random thing about Nikki. So this week's random thing, which she has no idea what I'm about to say.
Yes.
This week's random fun fact about Nikki is that not only was she on The Price is Right, she got to go up on stage at the end and give Bob a big old hug. You didn't kiss his cheek, did you? He didn't.
No, I think I gave him a hug, yeah.
Okay, I was gonna go. I don't remember now.
I know.
Give Bob Barker a big old hug.
I did. I got to give Bob Barker a hug. That was so fun.
Tell us about that, Nikki.
Yes. So we decided, I think was this the summer after we graduated?
Yeah.
And we have another best friend, James. The three of us were BFFs, and we talked him into driving us down to Southern California. This is like a 12-hour drive. And none of us had a car that would work. This is probably a whole nother fun fact. We talked him into buying a new car because he was the only one with a job.
Oh.
We drove down to Southern California for the purpose of being on these game shows. I think we did.
We did. We were on like 5 shows.
Yeah. Like we went to the Family Feud. What else did we do? Like
we went to the family. Well, we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
We went to the Family Feud. We went to Jay Leno.
Yeah.
Went to The Weakest Link, if anyone remembers that show.
About that. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, and we went on was it called The Talk? It was like The View, but with boys.
Oh my goodness. I totally forgot about that.
Was it called The Talk? It had like Dick Clark and Mario Lopez.
Yeah.
Danny Bonaducci, and then someone else who I didn't know who he was.
Yes. Oh my gosh. We just drove around to try and find these places. But anyways, back to The Price is Right.
Yes, sorry.
It's like a whole, if you don't know The Price is Right, like you have to like get interviewed sort of, right? When you go through. So there was a lady behind us or in front of us, right? Melanie?
Yes. Yeah. Melanie.
Yeah. I only remember because there's pictures of our name tags, but we became friends with her because she was by herself, right? She wasn't with anybody else. Yeah, she was by herself.
She ripped her up because he didn't want to go.
Yeah. And so we were friends with her like through our interview process. And so if they like your group, they tend to choose somebody from your group, essentially. You have to be fun and engaging. She got chosen out of our group to go up there. And so I think was James mad because that we got her in our group because one of us could have been up there.
Probably.
James was always mad at something. And she got called up there. She ended up winning. Did she win the whole? She won
everything.
Won the whole thing, and we got to go up on stage because we were her quote unquote group, and we ran up there with her and gave Bob Barker a hug. He gave me a signed picture of himself.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I still might have that in storage somewhere. A picture of Bob Barker.
The only thing I remember is the amount of makeup on his face.
Yes.
Like a good half an inch of makeup on his face.
The face tan. He was like orange. He was pure orange. Yeah. It was pretty crazy. So there's my fun fact. If you've ever been on a game show or some sort of audience like that, send me a message. I'd love to hear what you were on.
We started this series called Ask a Therapist because Nikki gets a lot of questions that I see, asking about all kinds of different things, different topics, different everything. And we thought it would be a great idea to have some of these answers compiled somewhere where you guys can access them for now, for in the future, for anyone that's struggling. So we have 5 questions that Nikki's going to answer today from you from people who submitted these questions. So
Awesome.
let's get started.
Let's go.
The first question is it necessary to undergo special therapy for trauma? Because can Jesus just not heal that trauma for us?
I think this is a common question. Elder Holland gave a really good talk. It's been a long time ago now. The Like a Broken Vessel. Mm-hmm. It's probably like 15 years old now.
Yeah,
that
probably
talk.
is.
Yeah. He's really good about talking about mental health a lot. I really love that. But he even talked in there about like if you had appendicitis, you would go to God and ask for help with healing and prayer and get a blessing. But you would also go to a doctor that specializes in that, get the surgery that you need to get, right? Like God has provided these ways for us to heal on this earth. And he expects us to do it both ways. He expects us to go to the doctor and get the medicine we need and also use prayer and fasting and blessings and going to the temple, that these are all resources available to us. But that's also one of the reasons I really love doing mental health through a spiritual lens, because I believe that mental health skills are what bring you closer to the Savior. And that my ultimate goal as an LDS therapist, when people are coming to me who are LDS, that my focus is to help them return back to the true healer, that I just become the vessel that helps them get back to the Savior.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there are specialized modalities that help you heal from trauma, because trauma affects the brain differently than maybe like a genetic depression or anxiety or ADHD, or even experiences that happen to us that might cause depression. Trauma affects your brain and your body differently than depression does or anxiety. And it's important to see a therapist who is trauma trained and has specific modalities that heal trauma. Because when I'm helping somebody who's dealing with trauma, there are specific things I can and can't do that could cause more harm if I'm helping somebody with trauma. And so you want somebody who is trained to know what they shouldn't be doing, what they should be doing when it comes to trauma, that can be more harmful or healing. So it's important to really reach out to somebody who is specialized in that, and to reach out for those resources that God really has provided for us on this earth.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely need both.
Mm-hmm.
Great. How do you deal with betrayal trauma?
This is an interesting question. Some people might not even really know what betrayal trauma is. Yeah. So, have you heard of that term before?
I've heard of it, but yeah, I feel like explaining it might really be helpful.
Yes. It's kind of how it sounds, like if you've been betrayed by somebody. Oftentimes it seems like it comes in the form of like a spousal betrayal like that. But it really is like the definition, if you looked it up, is a significant violation of trust by someone you have a close relationship with. So you can have betrayal trauma from like maybe a parent or something like that as well. But it's not that it's a random stranger. Then it's not betrayal trauma, right? And when we, any trauma trigger, essentially, right, that we've had has us looking through a different lens. We see the world differently anytime we have a trauma. And the natural man is really good at making us make choices that will protect ourselves in ways that almost become more harmful to ourselves. And we reharm and re-traumatize our own selves if we stay in that state. And so if we've had a trauma and we stay in the wrong brain state, we will essentially add some fertilizer to that trauma and make it grow bigger within us. And so we want to, if you're in a relationship with somebody who has betrayed you and caused that trauma to occur to you, and you're fertilizing that trauma, that's going to affect the relationship, right? Yeah. And so oftentimes people will say that if that person makes these changes, my trauma will heal, right? And that's actually not what it is. With betrayal trauma, it's really about you getting in and healing yourself and working on not fertilizing your trauma, just, making this bigger because it causes a greater divide in that relationship, especially if you plan to continue that relationship with somebody. Making sure that you're doing your own work and your own healing with that. Because really, when we look at betrayal trauma and say, well, if this person heals or if this person makes these changes, that's going to heal me, we call that codependency. Mm-hmm. Because it's not about another person healing us. It's about us healing ourselves.
Exactly.
And of course, we might need to set boundaries in that process, but boundaries also don't heal us. You still need to go in and do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Will you make that a sticker on your website?
What's that?
Don't fertilize your trauma.
We should make that a t-shirt.
So true. You gotta work on yourself. Okay, so as a therapist, how do you benefit from your own therapy? Because you should have all this insight already, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah. I think if anybody has experienced any amount of a mental health diagnosis or trauma or anything like that, you can imagine how difficult, you probably already know how difficult it is to think clearly, right? When you have your own problem, the problem's like right in front of your face, right? It's like really difficult to see anything else or have this other perspective. And of course, you know the skills, but do we all use skills if we know them? We might all know the right thing to do, but do we always do that, right? Therapists are not superhuman, right? Like, have you ever known a doctor that maybe smokes cigarettes, right? Like, of course they know how damaging that's going to be to them, right? Or maybe a dentist that eats candy or something. Like, we all aren't perfect, right? And we all might have that knowledge and that insight, but we also need someone there to support and heal us. Another analogy I think of is like a surgeon can't do their own surgery.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You need someone else to do that. Like, sometimes you need to take a step back and ask for that help and support. In my master's program, that was I feel like the main theme of getting your master's in therapy is like, learn how to deal with your own stuff and take care of yourself, mm-hmm. because you're going to be in this room with that type of energy coming at you all the time. Sure. You need to protect yourself, and two, you need to have that support and help to process through. So we're encouraged to have supervision with people frequently, even after you get your license, but to have places where you can discuss things with other people, but also to reach out and have your own therapist or support, because it can be difficult, just the amount of things that you're dealing with on a daily basis or hearing.
Yeah, you're exposed to a lot
mm-hmm.
of stuff, so that mm-hmm. totally makes sense.
Yeah. There's even a term called secondary trauma, not just for therapists, but you can become traumatized by hearing about somebody else's trauma.
Really?
Yeah. And so it's really important as a trauma therapist as well to have kind of a shield or a protection around you when you're helping someone with trauma, so you don't become traumatized by hearing the intimate details about somebody else's trauma on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to interrupt this episode to tell you about a new line of products I have for your mental health. These would be great Mother's Day gifts, missionary gifts, ministering gifts, or just a treat yourself gift. First, I created a new line called the Think Celestial line. I created a cute, dainty 18 karat gold adjustable bracelet that says Think Celestial. This is to help you remember to practice your mental health skills that will actually help you think celestial. But not only is it a reminder, the bracelet also comes with a link to more mental health resources to help you think celestial. Another product I just released is my Think Celestial mini puzzle. Puzzling is a great mindfulness activity, and this puzzle also comes with those same mental health resources. And finally, I created a small pocket-sized stress less kit with curated items that help you turn back on your prefrontal cortex part of your brain and feel calm, focused, regulated, and process emotions. These are great for church bags, school bags, or even your purse. After I sold these at Pinner's Conference, I had a mom reach out to me and say that she got it approved for her son to use at school on his 504 plan. Stock up now on these while you're remembering Mother's Day, that missionary farewell you need to go to, or your ministering sister you haven't checked on in a while. Check out the link in my show notes that takes you to the store where you can check them all out. All right, back to the episode.
Next question. Oh, this is a good one. How do you deal with the loss of a loved one?
Yeah. So, I was trying to think of all the different losses. Everyone experiences losses in different ways. And there's not really one right way to grieve. It's not like, okay, here's the step. Here is the map to dealing with loss and grief. And I run grief support groups in my town. And one of the things that we spend a lot of time on is just recognizing and being okay with the way that we're grieving. Like how are we going through however we're going through this process is okay.
Yeah.
There's I think we often think people have heard like the stages of grief. And when people hear that, they think it's like step 1, step 2, step 3. And that's not even how it was intended to be, that you can actually be in all 5 stages at once at the same time.
Really?
And it's not like you get through one and you never have to come back to it. Like for the rest of your life, you're going through some of those things because there are different elements of grief and loss, right? Like you might grieve this part of that situation, but then you have another aspect of that to grieve because it's a different time in your life when you thought you might have something happening.
Yeah,
And so
sure.
really one thing I always tell people is like, there's no one right way to do it. And also there's a couple different theories that have come out about grief that I think aren't out there as much. But one I really like that we teach in our grief support group is there's like 3 different parts of dealing with grief when you have a loss. One is like you're dealing with this loss of the person, right? You're dealing with the emotions that come with that and that part of the grief. Then there's this other side where you're dealing with the daily tasks with having had lost somebody, right? Like now, especially if you lose a spouse, now I have to do this life alone and now I have to go pay the bills or I have to do these things. You also have to do life now with grief, right? Yeah. And then there's also this third part of it is like getting flipped back and forth between those two. That becomes really difficult.
Yeah,
sure. Of like, oh, I got to go do real life and I also want to process my grief. And then that back and forth is also an energy process of being able to know and say, when do I need to do which? And so we talk a lot about in our grief support groups too about knowing when to put grief on hold and when to say it's okay to not grieve right now. I have to do these things. And what are the skills that I need to develop in my life to be able to say, that's something I'm going to the grocery store right now. I don't want to be grieving in the middle of the grocery store. Yeah. How do I put that aside so I can go to the grocery store, allow myself to take care of my basic needs, come back home and have that time that I set aside to grieve and allow myself to have those emotions come out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that makes total sense. That's really smart.
Yeah. So just, I think developing those skills to be able to do those 2 things and knowing when you want to do them.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be a huge help. Perfect. Yeah. I love that.
One more thing I thought of too is go to a grief support group to learn all these things too.
Yeah.
Like there are so many, like the internet these days, you can do online grief support groups. There's Facebook groups. Cool. There's all sorts of things that can be specific to your type of loss too. Like it doesn't have to be a general grief support group, but you can have specific, like someone who's lost a child or someone who's lost a spouse or, they could be different ways.
Yeah. Would you recommend, you would recommend anyone, like even if, like a child, I feel like sometimes every time a child loses a sibling or a parent, I'm always like, put them in therapy, please get them help. Would you recommend like anyone going through grief and loss to get some kind of, whether it's a grief group or...
Yeah. The therapy and support groups kind of hold a different role. Therapy, there's specific things that you can come in for and get help with and learn the skills. But I feel like support groups play a really important role in knowing you're not alone. Like you're going there not with a therapist who maybe hasn't experienced what you experienced, but you're going there to talk with other people who have experienced what you've experienced. And that is a crucial piece of healing that we need in grief and loss.
Absolutely. And I feel like when you are grieving, you do feel alone. And you do feel like no one understands me. No one's gone through this. Or if they did, it was different. Or, having validation of someone else that's been there is so helpful.
It is.
So.
Yeah. And so I definitely, with the internet, you can type in any support group for specific losses and find somebody who can help you fulfill that role of feeling that connection.
Yeah. So important.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Last question of the episode. We're going to talk about processing.
Yes.
How to process, and what is the goal and the result that you want from processing something, and why is it so beneficial to process things?
I feel like processing is kind of one of those buzz terms too. I feel like you need to go process that, right? And people are like, what does processing even look like? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And there's kind of two different ways you can look at processing when we talk about that. Like if someone's coming into therapy and they're like, Nikki, I need to process this. There's a couple ways that I could look at that when they're saying that to me. One is we need to process or work through emotions in order to let them go, right?
Yeah.
And so emotions, if they're not processed, are kind of like a volcano. We've shoved them down enough, we can create a lot of pressure. And what happens to volcanoes when they have a lot of pressure? They blow up, right?
Yes.
And that's what happens to us if we don't learn to process our emotions, right? And so processing doesn't have to be a verbal thing, right? With our emotions, it can be sitting in meditation or stillness or prayer, or it can be just talking about it or labeling it. It's so healing. Like, I'm feeling this because of this. Like, that is literal processing, and it can be that quick. But the other part of processing is, and you don't have to do this with another person, but in therapy, it's easier because that's what we're trained to do, is help you see a different perspective to what you might be thinking. We can get in our mind and think, I'm thinking this way, that's the only way. It becomes fact.
Yeah.
And that's the only way life is, because I thought it, it's now fact, and that's the only way it is. And so when you go and talk to a therapist or somebody else and you're processing something, they can offer an alternative perspective. We call it reframing. So we're giving a different light or a different view to something and helping us see things like, oh, I never really thought about it that way. Also relieves that pressure.
Yeah.
Right. And so processing can be that direction as well. Like talking about it out loud, or that's why journaling is so helpful and healing sometimes too, is because you're processing on the paper, you're writing, and your brain comes to see things in a different way. When we're thinking thoughts, a lot of times we're not thinking in full sentences or full concepts, but when you have to put something together in a sentence to say it, it's got to make sense to the other person, right? And it can't jump around like our brain does. So processing, I think of it a lot as why President Nelson encourages us to write our revelations down. You literally have to put something in real words.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not...
See, I never thought of that either.
Yeah. It's like a translation process.
Yeah. You have to put it in words instead of thoughts. Like, yeah, you just make so much sense.
So a lot of times when we receive a revelation, it can be a feeling or a concept that like just makes sense to our brain. But if you had to explain it to somebody else, when you go to explain it, you're like, wait, how do I put that into words?
Yeah.
Like but when you do, it solidifies it for you and you see it in a different way.
Gotcha. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And that is super helpful. There's been so many times that Nikki has said something and I'm like, I never thought of it that way. And it really is like a healing thing. Like it is like this mind-blowing, like, oh, it really is helpful to
have that reframe or that change.
It really is. Because even with things not mental health related, just in other basic things where I see something in a different way and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Like just being open to, you need that.
An alternative view.
Yeah, you really do sometimes, because sometimes it's, at least for me, it's hard to, it's like, nope, this is how we do it. Let's just do it. And definitely helps getting another view. So,
and that's kind of what revelation is too, is it's a processing, right? It's like if you're sitting in meditation or stillness or quietness and the spirit is revealing something to you, the spirit sometimes, the spirit's like an influencer. It's a guide, right? Like it's going to offer us an alternative perspective of something if we let it. But if we hold on to so tight to our belief about how that thing is, we can't allow the Holy Ghost to be an influencer or a guider, right, to our thoughts. And so processing sometimes too out loud allows us to let go of control of our thoughts. I hear that a lot from people. They're like, I want to be in control of my thoughts. I'm like, I don't think you do. I don't think you want to be in control of your thoughts, because that means you're asserting your will and not allowing our heavenly parents will to come to us, because then I know that we all want to be in control, right? But that also takes faith out of the equation, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to allow ourselves to feel that reliance upon the Savior without the control.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's some deep thoughts.
Yeah. Julie's over here processing, guys.
I'm processing. To go back, because I've always heard of therapists, like I've heard of people that are like, write this person a letter that has, done something or whatever. And to me, I was just like, oh, okay, you're just letting it out. But now that you say like your thoughts are not full sentences, like that just makes more sense to me why it's important to write something down.
Yeah. That's like a literal modality, Gestalt therapy. Like you're writing a letter to somebody, or like we call it the open chair, like that you literally talk to somebody because you're processing that.
Yeah.
You are saying it out loud, something that has just been kind of mulled over in your brain, but not fully even conceptualized.
Yeah. Is that why it feels good to vent sometimes? Because you just have to like say it with words and let it out.
Yeah. I mean, in the modality that I use, there's a skill called labeling your thoughts. It relieves the pressure or intensity to things. It's a mindfulness skill of just putting words to something relieves pressure.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks. That was a great 5 questions. And thank you guys for submitting those. Those were great questions.
Yeah. And don't forget to fill out, we have a form that will link in the episode where you can ask a question anonymously. You don't even put your name or email address or anything, and just let us know and we'll be answering those, or you can DM me on Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. Please keep the questions coming because I think this is helpful for me. When you ask questions, I learned so much. So thank you. I appreciate this.
Yeah.
Hopefully a lot of other people are learning too because, this is great knowledge to have. So awesome. Well, thank you.
Yep.
For answering those.
We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. I hope you were able to find ways of healing, guidance, and peace. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend who would love to start thinking in a higher and holier way as well. Or hit that follow button so you don't miss out on any episodes. Also, check out the links in my show notes for other episodes you might like, and links for other mental health resources on my website.